Organic farming has gained popularity due to the high demand of organic products from consumers. Today we visit a farm at Maimahiu in Nakuru County. The scenic view of the escarpment and excavators mining around the area ushered us to the 6-acre organic farm, which is surrounded by trees. The farm is 100% certified organic. Rarely do we see trees on agricultural land, as many farmers prefer to clear them. But here, the trees around have significant value, which has increased agricultural yields. So organic farming is a big topic where food safety is concerned, and many times when you hear about organic, we think about not using chemicals, intervention in our farming practices. But organic farming is far much more than just not using chemicals intervention, but rather embracing sustainable agricultural practices that promote the health of the entire ecosystem, as we are going to learn from Sylvia Kuria, who is and has been an organic farmer for the last 11 years.
My name is Sylvia Kuria and I'm a small-scale organic farmer. I've been farming upwards of 10 years, and I just started small in a kitchen garden just to grow food for my family, and with time the food was more than enough, and that's when we decided to go a bit more large scale and go commercial and sell our organic produce.
Was agriculture the main thing that you wanted to do with your life?
Actually, no. I actually studied to become a social worker, which I did for about 5 or 6 years. And then when my children were young, I decided to stay at home and take care of the children. And that's when we moved to Limuru. And that's where my love for growing food started.
So organic farming has highly been linked with not using chemicals. So in your own understanding, what is organic farming?
Okay, the basic explanation about organic farming is actually growing food without using any synthetic inputs, meaning you're not using any synthetic pesticides, fertilizers, the animals don't have any antibiotics, and generally it's a more natural way of growing food, just as Mother Nature intended. But that is only just one little section of organic farming. So it's not the whole thing that encompasses what organic farming is. So that is just one little aspect. But organic farming is actually a wide approach to how you can be able to grow your food. And now, we have so many terms that are coming up. And one that I feel describes me best is agroecology. It took me quite some time to even to understand it myself, because I didn't even know that I was actually practicing agroecology for a very long time. But basically, there's a way in which nature works. So we are trying to mimic nature. So we are doing agriculture in a way that supports biodiversity and supports the natural way that farming is actually done.
Why is having a wide range of vegetables essential in organic farming?
One, we have to think about also of the nutrition of the families that are growing the food and the nutrition of our communities. So we are not just growing one particular kind of crop. Though again, I need to go back and say that you can also have organic farms that actually grow just one kind of crop. But in my opinion, it's okay, but it's not very sustainable, because the best way is to grow a wide variety of crops and also have animals that increase the biodiversity and also help the farm to be able to actually be more sustainable in the long term. So we actually have more than 20 different kinds of vegetables, fruits, and herbs that we grow here on our farms. On this just one bed, we've planted some beans, we have millet, we have red cabbage, we have white cabbage, we have sunflower, we have cassava, and we also have sweet potatoes. And the wide variety of vegetables, fruits and cereals that we grow will make sure that we are able to meet the nutritional needs not only of my family but also of the clients who also buy from us. And also one good thing about biodiversity is that you're able to mitigate against the different risks that could come about in terms of poor rains, or like, you know, like maybe you don't have good soil for one particular crop. But what we've done, like in this particular season, for example, we grew a lot of maize, which didn't do very well because the rains really failed. Last year, we didn't get good rains at all in the short rains. And this year in the long rains, can you imagine, we only got 4 days of rain? 4 days of rain cannot sustain a maize crop. So we also grow drought-resistant crops like this beautiful sorghum that you can see right here. And this beautiful sorghum plantation that you see here will actually give us a very good harvest in comparison to the maize that did very dismally because the rains failed this season. So when you have biodiversity, in case one crop doesn't do well, you'll always have another one. So my maize hasn't done very well. I won't get any for home consumption, but where it has reached, it's going to be very good fodder for my animals. But with sorghum, I'm actually going to get some for my own consumption. So it's good to have biodiversity because we are battling with a lot of climate change and with a lot of issues in our environment. So it's always good to have a wide variety of crops. So if one doesn't do well, the other one will actually give you some form of food security. So in the next section, I want to show you the comparison between sorghum and maize that we planted this season, and you'll be able to see which crop did much better with very little rain. So here you can see I have my sorghum on the right, and on the left I have the maize. The maize was heavily infested with armyworm, though we managed to deal with the armyworm using pheromone traps. And right here, you'll find that the sorghum was not affected at all by the armyworm, and they are right next to each other, side by side. The maize is very short. I don't think I'm going to get any produce out of here because you only got about 45 days of rain this season, and yet the sorghum is thriving and I'm actually going to get a harvest. This is just a challenge for farmers and for many of us who are doing farming. Please let us go back and grow our resistant indigenous foods that actually ensure that there is food security, because as we know, to be honest, maize is not indigenous to the African continent and maize needs a lot of rain. So even for us in semi-arid areas, it doesn't make sense to spend so much of our time and effort to plant maize, and yet sorghum and many millet varieties actually do very well with minimal rainfall.
So you have quite a number of trees in your farm. Is this something you've done intentionally? Are you maybe going to clear them at some point?
No, it's intentional, and this is what we call agroforestry. Agroforestry is also one other major aspect in agroecology. You'll find many times as farmers, you have a shamba and you clear everything and make it clean without even putting into consideration that trees actually play a very huge role in the success of your farm. Right here, we've planted more than 2,000 trees on our farm because when we came, it was almost like a desert. And the trees have actually been very beneficial to our crops. We have planted 3 different kinds of trees. One, we plant agroforestry trees that actually help to fix nitrogen into the soil. As I said, when we came here, the soil was not very good, and we will not be able to get enough manure or enough fertilizer to actually make the soils be, rich to be able to grow food. So we planted trees. We plant nitrogen fixing trees. They fix nitrogen into the soil and actually help you get good crops. Then we've also planted crops for fodder, because sometimes it can get very dry and my animals still have to get enough fodder to eat. So I plant a lot of Caliandra and Lucena, which are agroforestry shrubs, and they really do help to make sure that even during the dry season, and they are evergreen trees and shrubs. So even during the dry season, I find that especially my cows and my sheep actually have enough food to actually take them through the dry season. And then we also plant a lot of indigenous fruit trees. In fact, most of the trees that we have in our tree nursery are indigenous.
How can you say that you have impacted the community around this area?
As farmers, we actually spend so much time having to learn to know how we can be able to grow our food sustainably. But to be honest, you cannot keep that information to yourself. You should be able to work with your local community to make sure that they too will be able to access this information, that they can also be able to grow their food in a more sustainable way. When I talk to many farmers, because we also do a lot of training of farmers, many farmers say that they're not very happy with the produce they're getting now. When they compare the produce they get now versus 20 years ago, the produce just keeps decreasing. And they're just wondering, you know, do we have any solutions? What can we do to make sure that we have enough food, that we have good harvest that we used to get? And one of the things that they have found is that, you know, we have really messed up our ecosystem. We have really, you know, done so much to, you know, that is very retrogressive, that we're not even able to get very good inputs. And what we have done at Sylvia's Basket is to make sure that we work with the local communities, we train the local women, especially because we find many women farmers don't even have access to information. Small-scale farmers don't have access to this information. But to be able to train them and support them to make sure that they get the information on how they can move back into a more sustainable way of farming.